Most people think the hardest part of divorce is deciding to leave. But for many women, the real regret comes after the papers are signed, when the dust has settled and they're left staring at a settlement that felt right in the moment, but turned out to be a mistake they couldn't undo. It happens more often than you'd think. The first offer comes in, you're exhausted, emotionally drained, and all you want is peace. So you say yes, you take the deal, you tell yourself it's over. But months or even years later, you start to feel it, that quiet unease, a sense that maybe you gave up more than you realized. Maybe you were too quick to compromise, too eager to avoid the fight, too tired to ask the right questions. And now the consequences are yours to carry. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. So many women look back at the first settlement they accepted and wonder what would have happened if they had waited, asked for more, or simply slowed down. That first yes can feel like freedom, but in reality, it might be the moment your future got quietly rewritten. In this video, we're going to walk through 7 reasons women regret their first divorce settlement and how to avoid making the same mistake. These aren't just legal technicalities, they're emotional blind spots, financial missteps, and hidden clauses that often go unnoticed until it's too late. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll not only understand the traps, you'll know exactly how to protect yourself from falling into them. But let's get started. When you're going through a divorce, especially one that's dragged on or gotten messy, the emotional exhaustion can be overwhelming. You're tired of the phone calls, the meetings, the back and forth. At some point, many women reach a moment where they just want it to be done. And that's exactly when the first settlement offer lands on the table. It's not perfect. Maybe it's not even fair, but it promises something seductive. Closure, an end, peace. So you sign, not because it's the best deal, but because you want to feel like a human being again. But here's the truth no one tells you in that moment. When you agree to settle just to make the pain stop, you're trading short-term relief for long-term regret. You might give up the house because you think you can't afford to fight for it. You might agree to less spousal support because you don't want to seem difficult. You might ignore vague language in the parenting plan just because reading another legal document makes your stomach turn. But each of those compromises adds up. And later, when the emotional fog clears, you realize what you gave away in exchange for peace. The pressure to just move on is real and deeply human, but rushing the process often means overlooking things that could impact your finances, your housing, and even your freedom for years to come. The moment that feels like the end of the battle might actually be the start of an entirely different one, this time with no leverage left to change the terms. And it only gets harder from here. Most people think dividing assets is just about being fair. But fairness doesn't mean equal, and it definitely doesn't mean smart. One of the biggest regrets women face after accepting that first settlement is realizing too late that they didn't actually understand the full value or future cost of what they agreed to. On paper, it might have looked even. You keep the house, he keeps a retirement account, or maybe you split everything down the middle. But here's what gets overlooked: the hidden layers, taxes, liquidity, long-term growth, maintenance. A house might feel like a win until you realize you're sitting on a giant, expensive responsibility with no cash flow and no support. Meanwhile, he walks away with a 401k that quietly grows, tax-deferred year after year. It's not just about what something's worth today, it's about what it will cost or earn over time. That antique car collection might have sentimental value, but it won't pay for your health care. That expensive furniture might look nice in the living room, but it won't cover property taxes. And when those bills start piling up, you begin to see the imbalance. The other trap? Trusting without verifying. Some women assume their ex is being honest about financial disclosures. They don't dig deeper, they don't ask questions, and they sign off on deals without realizing that half the picture was missing, or worse, intentionally hidden. Asset division isn't just about what you get, it's about what it means. If you're not asking a financial expert to break it down in plain English, you're guessing. And guessing in divorce is expensive. What feels like a clean break today could become a slow bleed for the next decade. But there's something even more dangerous than not knowing the value of assets, and that's coming up next. It's easy to focus on what you're going to receive in a divorce, who gets the house, the cars, the savings. But what many women don't realize until it's far too late is that they may also be walking away with debts they didn't fully understand or agree to. And that mistake can quietly wreck your financial future. Here's how it happens. In the push to divide property and move forward, some liabilities slip through the cracks. Maybe there's a joint credit card you assumed he'd pay off, or a business loan with your name attached that you didn't even know existed. Maybe he agreed to handle the mortgage, but your name is still on the loan, meaning if he misses a payment, your credit takes the hit. And if he decides to file bankruptcy, you could be left holding the bag. In too many cases, women agree to a settlement thinking everything's been handled, only to learn months later that the fine print didn't protect them. Just because the divorce decree says he's responsible doesn't mean the bank agrees. Creditors don't care what your divorce papers say. They care whose name is on the contract. And if you're already trying to rebuild your life, maybe working a new job, managing kids, or downsizing, it can feel like being hit all over again when those debt collectors start calling. This kind of financial blow doesn't just cause stress. It creates resentment, regret, and a deep feeling of betrayal, not just by your ex, but by the process itself. So before you sign anything, ask the hard questions. Who's responsible for which debts? Are your name and liability truly removed from every account? Did you pull a full credit report together and check every detail? Because if you don't know exactly what debts are still attached to you, you're gambling with your future. And the next regret might hit even closer to home. One of the most common and heartbreaking reasons women accept the first settlement offer is simple. They just want it to be over. The stress, the tension, the long conversations with lawyers, the emotional exhaustion from fighting someone they once loved. And in that fog of fatigue, one thought starts to take over. If I just agree to this, maybe I can finally move on. But here's the truth no one tells you. Making decisions just to keep the peace in the moment can leave you in chaos for years. You may avoid conflict now, but you're trading that short-term comfort for long-term consequences. Many women later realized they gave up too much. They accepted unfair terms. They didn't push back, not because they didn't care, because they were tired, worn down, maybe even pressured by their ex or influenced by friends and family saying, just take the deal and be done with it. But divorce isn't just about the end of a marriage. It's the beginning of a new financial life. And if that new chapter starts with regret, it can be incredibly hard to rewrite. You don't get a do-over once the papers are signed. That peace you thought you'd feel is often replaced with a quiet resentment when reality sinks in, and you're stuck living with decisions you didn't fully understand or negotiate for. And here's what makes it worse. Many exes count on this. They expect you to fold early, to prioritize closure over clarity. And when you do, they walk away with the better deal while you're left trying to rebuild from a shaky foundation. So if you're in that place, tired, overwhelmed, and tempted to say yes just to end the fight, pause, take a breath, get clarity. You don't have to become combative, but you do need to become strategic. Because your future peace doesn't come from agreeing too quickly. It comes from knowing you made informed, empowered choices. And in the next section, we'll talk about a costly mistake that hides in plain sight and almost no one warns you about. At first glance, the offer might seem generous. He keeps the retirement account and you get the house. Or maybe he takes the business and you get the savings account. On paper, it all looks equal. But what many women fail to realize is that not all assets are created equal, and treating them like they are can cost you dearly in the long run. Let's take the house, for example. It might feel like the safer choice, familiar, emotionally significant, and something you can physically see and touch. But what about the hidden costs? Property taxes, maintenance, insurance, repairs. These add up quickly. And if your income is suddenly cut in half or more, keeping that house might slowly bleed your finances dry. Meanwhile, the retirement account your ex walked away with continues to grow, untouched, untaxed, and potentially worth far more in the future than it appears today. The same goes for things like stock options, business shares, or investment portfolios. These may not feel real in the moment, especially when you're comparing them to something tangible, but they carry long-term value that could dramatically change your future security. Too often, women accept what looks good now without fully understanding what those assets will be worth or cost 5 or 10 years down the road. And it doesn't stop there. Even cash payouts can be deceptive. A lump sum might seem appealing, but without financial planning, it can disappear fast, especially if you're using it to stay afloat rather than grow your stability.
What's missing here is perspective. The ability to look beyond today and ask, what will this asset look like over time? How will it grow? What will it cost me to maintain? And will it support the kind of life I want to rebuild? This is where expert advice matters. Financial advisors, divorce-frequent CPAs, even certified divorce financial analysts, they can help translate numbers into reality. Because when you underestimate the long-term impact of non-cash assets, you risk locking yourself into a future that feels smaller, tighter, and more fragile than it needs to be. And in the next section, we'll look at one regret that isn't about money at all, but hits just as hard. In the rush to finalize a settlement, many women make one painful mistake. They only plan for the end of the marriage, not the beginning of the life that follows. It's completely understandable when you're in the thick of legal documents, emotional strain, and tough conversations. Your mind is focused on survival. You just want the paperwork done, the decisions made, and some form of stability to return. But what happens next?
Too many women wake up months later and realize they made financial decisions based on their current pain, not their future needs. Maybe they agreed to a smaller share of retirement because they weren't thinking about what their 60S or 70S would look like. Maybe they didn't push for spousal support because they assumed they'd be fine on one income. Or maybe they underestimated how much raising kids alone or re-entering the workforce would actually cost. The result? Regret. Not just about the money, but about feeling unprepared, struggling to pay bills, putting off medical care, dipping into savings earlier than planned, watching dreams of travel, home ownership, or even just peace of mind start to slip further away.
And here's the part no one talks about. Divorce isn't just a breakup. It's a reset. It's the moment where your future is rewritten. If you don't ask, what kind of life do I want in 5 years, 10 years? Then you're letting your ex write that story for you. And chances are his priorities don't include your long-term security. You deserve more than just getting by. You deserve a fresh start that's built on clarity, not compromise. And that means thinking beyond the courtroom, into the life you're stepping into next. What do you need to feel safe, stable, free? Because once the papers are signed, it's no longer about what was fair. It's about what you're left with. And in the final section, we'll talk about the silent pressure that pushes women to settle fast and how to protect yourself from it. One of the most overlooked reasons women accept a bad settlement, they're exhausted, emotionally drained, worn down by the arguments, the paperwork, the waiting, the stress. Somewhere along the way, they stop fighting for what they deserve and start fighting to just get it over with. I just want peace, they say. I can't do this anymore. And that's when mistakes happen. Lawyers know it, judges know it. Sometimes even your ex knows it. And he may use that to his advantage. He drags things out, he stalls, he pushes for meetings you can't attend, deadlines you can't meet, hoping you'll get tired enough to say yes to anything. And when that moment comes, when you're at your lowest, you're most vulnerable, that first offer starts to look more appealing than it really is. But here's the truth. That first offer is often the worst one. It's designed to be quick, not fair. It's crafted to test your limits, not meet your needs. And once you accept it, the consequences are yours to carry, not for a week or a month, but potentially for the rest of your life. Think about that. You could give up tens of thousands in retirement, miss out on years of spousal support, or agree to terms that box you into financial struggle, all because you were too tired to fight one more round. That's not weakness, it's human. But it's also why so many women look back and say, I wish I had waited. I wish I had asked one more question. I wish I had said no. You don't need to be aggressive or ruthless to protect yourself. But you do need to pause, to breathe, to get advice, to ask if what you're being offered is truly fair or just fast. Because the divorce will end, the paperwork will be filed, but the impact of what you agree to, that stays with you. Looking back, it's not the divorce itself that most women regret. It's how quickly they agreed to a deal that didn't truly reflect their worth. They were overwhelmed, misinformed, or simply too exhausted to keep pushing. And in that moment, accepting the first settlement felt like the easiest way out. But the truth is, it often becomes the door to a harder reality. One where money runs out faster than expected, long-term needs were never planned for, and the life they imagined after divorce slips further away with each passing year. But it doesn't have to be that way. The choices you make during divorce aren't just legal, they're deeply personal. They shape your next chapter, your financial future, and your ability to rebuild with confidence. So if you're in that process now, or if someone you care about is, take this as a quiet warning and a powerful reminder. You deserve more than the first offer. You deserve time to think, space to breathe, and the strength to ask for what you truly need, not just what feels easiest in the moment. Because divorce doesn't end with a signature. It ends when you step into the next phase of your life, feeling secure, respected, and free. And sometimes the best thing you can do is wait, ask another question, run the numbers again, talk to someone who's been there, because settling fast might bring temporary relief, but protecting your future brings lasting peace. Thanks for being here. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And remember, your future is worth fighting for, one informed choice at a time.